Okay, Square Enix, you need to stop going all out on the moments in this remake that actually don't matter all that much. How many of you honestly expected a full-on Hell House boss fight in the last game? That was a funny joke you came up with 20 years ago, and you turned it into the most objectively interesting fights of the previous game. And now you blow a chunk of the production budget on the Junon Parade of all things. I understand going for spectacle here, as that's the in-game reason for the parade. If it's not a flashy, overcompensating circle jerk of the world's most dominant corporation/government, you haven't realized the original's full vision, and that's what this remake trilogy is all about, making the 1997 game as you pictured it in your heads. But indeed, you never envisioned making the gathering of the troops one of the comedic highlights of this franchise, which then leads to a freaking dance number and culminates with one of the most sickening feelings of dread I've ever experienced in front of a screen. So let's break this whole thing down piece by piece, and I'll explain the sick joke of the Junon Parade. From the second you step foot in Upper Junon, the game is trying to inflict as much positivity as humanly possible. For OG fans, seeing the most iconic canon in video games is going to get you giddy, especially with the eye-wateringly gorgeous pre-rendered cutscene. The sky is as bright as it can possibly be, and the Shinra army glistens under the radiant sun. This is the game's spectacular visual style aiming to impress you. Then the game tries to make you laugh. At least I hope it's trying to. Your party, the most wanted criminals in the world right now, steps onto a military-based runway with no disguises, and you can get as close to the guards as you please. I get that it wants to let you explore the fancy location we just saw in the cutscene, but even in the nonsensical world that is Nomura's head, he had to know that this doesn't work. Moving on from that, we get to the scene where Cloud decides to change into a Shinra uniform. This time, Tifa and Aerith decide to join you, again for, player-pleasing reasons? So far, Junon has pleased nostalgic fans, graphics nuts, cynics who laugh at stupid video game logic, and now the people who write more AO3 fanfiction than they do grocery lists. As a side note, I actually do have some fanfiction writings on that site, and if you think I'm about to plug them for you, you are dead wrong. I do eventually want sponsorships. Then we get what might be the greatest anthology of jokes ever told in a video game, the gathering of the Shinra troops' 7th Infantry. None of the troops are as simple as walking up to them and getting them to join you. Well, from a gameplay perspective they are, but the developers give each group characterization, and this is their way of trying to get you to form a bond with the infantry troops. Each group is given a distinct personality and attitude towards Cloud. This is also an excuse to get us to explore Upper Junon in full, as this is one of the few locations we can't come back to, so Square Enix has to make sure that we fully engage with this area. What this gathering section does more than anything is humanize the Shinra rank and file. A corporation can't be 100% evil, only ideologies, and that's not what Shinra is. They aren't a religion or a belief system, they're a corporatized dictatorship. Sure, they have no regard for human life and the environment, but they can't enslave people because they need to keep their economy flowing, as they're not fueled by conquest but greed, and that sentiment isn't going to be shared with the lowest rank of soldiers. They're simply ordinary people who are good at fighting, and Shinra is the only place for them to put their skills to use without defecting to Wutai. I can't believe I'm justifying what might as well be militarized Amazon, but at least they're not like the Nazi Party, where if you work for them it means you agree with their policy. But speaking of intolerance, there is one group of 7th Infantry troops that stands out above the rest, and this is the, shiny Shinras? I'm honestly furious that you only need 5 infantry members to proceed, because that means it's more than likely a few players are going to be totally mystified as to what I'm talking about. Basically, you can follow Rude into what is essentially an allegory for an underground gay bar, except it's for bald people, and holy Genova if it is not the most gut-bustingly funny thing I have seen in a JRPG. When you enter the bar, they all but say, "We don't take too kindly to your types round these parts," complete with their own made-up slur of mop heads. I honestly nearly shed a tear, it was so ridiculously stupid. Again, all of this is to build up affection for your troops and make you care about them, and it's rather funny how fans can build up such affection for meaningless NPCs like the Gonk droid from Star Wars, and Rebirth has managed to do that with the literal faceless NPCs. After a performance that got way too much production value from the developers, your new followers accompany you as you make your escape from Junon. They devoutly gun down their comrades in the name of the guy who just did a dance with them. I will no longer tolerate people telling me that Nomura takes Kingdom Hearts lore seriously, because this is the funniest thing that Square Enix has ever put out. These troopers are actually committing war crimes and are prepared to be put to death in the name of the guy they just met who taught them to dance. Because the developers have gone all in on making sure you love these troopers at this point, they incorporate that love into the gameplay by making it possible for your troops to die on you, and it's up to you, the player, to protect them and keep them alive, and in Bahamut's name, I was going to. All of this culminates in the final scene of this section, where for the first time after murdering their co-workers, one of the guards finally questions your identity, and when Cloud reached for that sword, my heart sank. I thought there was no way they were going to make me do this. They were not about to pull a companion cube on me. Thankfully, it's just a fake out, and Cloud isn't going to murder the faceless goons I had grown to adore as much as my party. But, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, it wasn't until the end of the freaking game that I realized this moment was foreshadowing one of the final moments. I'm not joking here. From the second we set foot in Upper Junon, Square Enix has been building towards this moment, and it's not until the end of the game that we realized they were setting up another horrific moment in the ending. If you genuinely have no idea what the hell I'm talking about, then I'll leave a comment down below that you can click on once you've finished the game, and I'll explain the moment. If you're interested in seeing an essay about why it's so crucial that Final Fantasy is always fun, click the box on the left, and I'll see you in another 2 days.